and entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
Meat in general is fantastic. Organ meats are, nature's multivitamins. Like, yes, all of that's true. Just like, is that the only thing that I should personally eat and should most people eat?
But why raw?
Probably.
Why are you doing it raw?
I think it actually tastes better raw. So I had this theory that the most nutrient dense foods, fish eggs, like milk, butter, cream, like a lot of fish in general, organ meats, like they're all oftentimes very bright or densely colored, full of all sorts of nutrients. And they often, when you cook them, well, aside from the fact that people often don't cook them in culinary tradition, like you have Japanese, like raw fish eating culture, caviar is never cooked. Raw milk is better than pasteurized milk, which is cooked milk. And so if you want to extend that kind of thing to the organ meats, like you would think that the organ meats are better raw too. And part of that is that cooking denatures many nutrients.
What up, guys? Welcome back to the Creatures of Habit podcast. Today, I've got a special guest. He's a really tan man, actually, but he's also known as the Really Tan Man on social media. Steven Arena is the co-founder and CEO of Masa Chips, happens to be my all-time favorite tortilla chip.
Let's go.
It is really something that if you have, and you probably, you may or may not have tried it. It's a relatively new brand, but they are doing something very unique. And I can't wait to talk about it with Steven, but really what they've done is they've basically said, seed oils kill you, so we're gonna make tortilla chips different than everybody else in the market. We're gonna make it with beef tallow, and so it's a very, very distinct flavor profile that happens to be insanely delicious. The chip itself is also a bit heavier. It's just like there's something. They're delicious. They're delicious, and I was introduced to Steven about 6 or 8 months ago at my good buddy Eric Hinman's place, and there was a bunch of founders at his house, and Steven and his business partner at Masa were there. We connected. I tried the chips for the first time, and I fell in love. Like literally, I could not stop eating them, and so they're always at our house. We have them every Tuesday night for sure, without fail, for taco night at the Churn House, and I can't wait to just dive into why Masa Chips, the story behind that, and also hear how a software engineer at Facebook is now making tortilla chips. Steven, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So ideally, I'd love it from you. Give us a little background and a bio.
Yeah, sure. So I do not have a background in the food industry, as you alluded to. Freshman year of college, I was pretty sick by the end of it because that was the first time I had really ever eaten food that my mom hadn't made. My mom is the daughter of Italian immigrants, cooked everything I ever ate. I had a bunch of food sensitivities, including a gluten sensitivity as a kid. And so the first year at the dining hall really tore the crap out of my gut, in a somewhat literal sense. And I wasn't doing so well. I was getting sick all the time, etc. So I ended up going to Belgium to study, do some internship at a neuroscience lab at some university there. And they didn't have dining halls because it's Europe. And my mom wasn't there because she lives here. So I had to cook for myself for the first time. And that is when I really figured out that food affects the way I feel. Because that was the first time I had ever seen from start to finish, buying groceries, cooking the groceries, eating them, and evaluating how I felt after. That was the first time I had ever had insight into that entire process. And so that was pretty cool. And then I was like, well, if it can change how I feel, why can't I make myself feel better? So then I started the Paleo Diet, which was popular at the time. This was in 2014. And within 2 weeks, I was able to breathe through my nose, the first time in my life. I'd always been congested as a kid. And then I'm like, okay, this is real, right? If I can fix that, what else can I fix? And then that led me down this whole rabbit hole, continuing back to when I went to school, or when I was finishing school. It led me down this whole rabbit hole of how I could just optimize my health through food, mostly, but also just the general lifestyle factors affecting why everyone feels so sick. So yeah, that's my story. About 10 years ago, after I graduated school, I got a job as a software engineer at Facebook because that's just what was the natural career path for someone that majored in math is what I studied formally. But I never lost interest in this kind of thing. And then ultimately I decided to start posting everything I had learned and known, posted everything I had learned on social media. So I started with TikTok, then Instagram, then Twitter, and that was how I got like formally introduced like in a public way into this whole food health world.
What do you think about the paleo diet?
Yeah.
What element of that do you think made the biggest impact on your health?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Great question. Well, so I think the paleo diet is good for two primary reasons. One is that I think the philosophy is really on point, right? The foundational reason why the paleo diet exists is that humans evolved in correspondence with some environment that involves food, involves a lot of other things, light, air, water, whatever. And so we're at our best when we live in accordance with the way that we evolved. So like that's the foundational philosophy there. That's like really hard to disagree with, basically. Like that's how biology works. And I think that's a very important insight to get down. The thing is, though, evolution and human history is very complicated. So someone from Polynesia evolved in a very different way from someone in Northern Europe over however many thousands of years. And so then it gets into arguing about which foods are ancestral and which foods aren't. That's a whole complicated thing, but I think that foundation is very important. You should live, to the extent that you want to be healthy, you should live as like you evolved to live. And I think that's really valuable. The other thing that I think is super helpful about it is just that it eliminates most processed foods, like synthetic processed foods, artificial flavors, preservatives. Technically seed oils are not paleo, so that's great. A lot of things are swept up in that like throwing out of processed synthetic foods, so that's great. I think people are different enough that diets should vary person to person. But if I had to pick, those two things are really why it's so valuable, and people are still talking about it however many years later.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate, aside from gluten and glyphosate-free oats, not being a part of the paleo diet, which
Right.
I obviously have an oat business, so
Yeah.
I really love oats.
Corn's not paleo either. Corn's not paleo either.
Right.
Yeah.
But I really do love the standards of that protocol. I think it's like a lot of fruit, a lot of vegetables, and a bunch of meat too.
Yeah.
Predominantly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's basically what the protocol is.
Well, you were talking about the dairy in Denmark like a few minutes before we started recording, and dairy is not really paleo, but people distinctly evolved to process and digest dairy, even in the past like 11,000 years. And so this whole idea that like we should live as we did 100,000 years ago or whatever ignores the fact that like physiological change has happened in human populations even in the past 5,000 years.
Well, one thing to consider is that for the first, whatever it is, 6 months of life, you are surviving on dairy. Like that is what you are eating as a child, as a newborn
Exclusively
baby.
eating.
Exclusively. That is it. That is it. Like if I'm a father.
Yeah.
I have 2 sons. Their poop was white.
Wow.
For
Wild.
months.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Literally. It's like a milky, yellowy white. And that's because they're breastfeeding.
Right.
And so human milk is dairy.
Yes. It's slightly different, but it's most similar to dairy compared to any other thing.
Right.
You're not going to find it in a jar. It's like...
I'm going to open these. Do you mind?
Please.
I haven't tried the lime flavor, so I'm really excited to try these.
Excited to hear what you think. Yeah, this is also a thing for the keto among us. Like, not only does milk have sugar in it, but human breast milk has more sugar on average than pretty much any other milk, which is crazy. No one knows that.
More sugar.
More sugar than like cow milk.
Oh my gosh.
Good?
Well done.
Thank you.
Are you guys getting that crunch, by the way? That is fucking good.
It's a very audible crunch. Always has been.
Gosh. And I love it's like a really nice, well-balanced hint of lime.
Well, it's an actual lime, right? I spent a few weeks trying to figure out how like we're gonna do a lime flavor because every brand has like a lime tortilla chip. So I studied the recipe labels or the ingredient labels of every lime chip, and I was just like so appalled by what constitutes as lime in their opinion. One brand, and I don't want to name names, had like citric acid and lime oil. I'm like, that's not a lime. And then another one is like, oh, lime juice powder and maltodextrin. And I'm like, that's not a lime. Like, what is going on here? So I searched for all the spice providers, all the bulk ingredient suppliers, and I was like, hey, get me a lime powder that's just limes. And no one had it. It was all maltodextrin, synthetic flavors, whatever. And so we had to make the lime powder ourselves from organic limes that we physically bought. And we've had some trouble with this, keeping it in stock enough at high quantities, some certain quality control things, because we are turning limes into powder and using that. And I can see now why no one really does it, because it's a pain in the ass, but I think the result at the end speaks for itself.
I mean, it's insanely delicious.
Yeah.
I will just say that, do you find what you're doing is so unique? First of all, people are willing to spend the money that you have to charge for these chips because of what you do with them, right? And the price point is, I'm sure, something that you hear often.
Yes.
And I experience that too with our product, right? Like, you're dealing with people that are used to eating like Tostitos, and I'm dealing with people that are used to eating Quaker Oats, right? And so the Quaker Oat instant oat packet is like, whatever, 60 cents a serving, right?
Yeah.
It also has 26 grams of sugar and like nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's got 120 calories. And so me trying to convert a instant oatmeal Quaker user into a $5 a serving pouch.
So 10 times price difference.
10x.
Yeah, it's similar here.
You know,
Tostitos versus us, about 10x.
Right. Yeah. And so, for the first year, all I heard was, why? Why would you do? Why? Like, and I'm like, well, we use the best ingredients we can get our hands on.
Yeah.
And we also are very different than Quaker Oats, where we're offering 30 grams of plant-based protein and omega-3 fatty acids and actual like pumpkin seeds and chia seeds and flax seeds. And so it's a very it's hard. So what I learned in that process was, I'm not gunning for the Quaker Oats person, and you're not gunning for the Tostitos person. You're gunning for me. I'm gunning for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's enough of us.
Yeah.
But like, do you think making your own lime powder is sustainable?
At some point, we'll be able to scale it to the point where it is. It'll always be more expensive, right? Maybe even 10 or 100 times more expensive. But the way that, like, especially spices work, which is good, is that because you don't use that much of it per bag of chips, relative, because it's like pretty potent, you're able to charge enough to make up for it. Right now, it's just very annoying for us, and we're trying to find a way that like we don't have to literally hand slice. That's what they're doing, hand slicing with a deli slicer, like limes, to dehydrate them. It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
right?
It's crazy.
So at some point, food is great. Most foods are great because you can have equipment do the processing of the food without changing the ingredient quality. And that's what is really exciting to me about at least our product specifically. I don't need significantly different equipment from Frito-Lay to make my chips. I can use whatever equipment they use, just with my ingredients. And it's the same quality product. If anything, it's higher quality because it's more consistent because of the automation. And yet it's the same, it's much cheaper and it's the same ingredient quality. So like that's another fun thing too, and it might be good to talk to you about this. There are a lot of reasons why crappy food is cheap, other than just the crappy ingredients. Like, people always talk about ingredient quality, which is of course important, but there's a lot of other tricks up their sleeve that these food companies have that keep everything so inexpensive. So yeah, you go to the store and you see like 50-cent like Tostitos or something. Well, did you know that the seed oils and the corn in the Tostitos, because they're conventional, not organic and like large scale, the farms where those things come from receive like massive government subsidies that basically artificially lower the price of those ingredients so they can compete against us at a better price. But like, where's that money coming from? It's coming from you. Your tax dollars paid for the subsidies that allow crappy food to be cheap. And like, that's not a trick that I can take advantage of, buying small farm ingredients that are organic and whatever, but that's a trick that they can take advantage of. Another trick that they can take advantage of is the fact that on the grocery store shelf, say a bag of chips costs $1. Or let's say that Frito-Lay sells a bag of chips to some grocery store for $1. Well, when you, the customer, go buy it, you'll pay $1.20. But if I sell a bag of chips to the grocery store for $1, they'll charge you $1.45 because Frito-Lay is so big that they have these agreements with all these grocery stores to charge like a lower margin on their product just because the volumes are so high. So it's like because they're big, they can take advantage of all these tricks in pricing that allow them to artificially like appear lower, and it makes it even more difficult for small companies to like compete on price. And like these are the types of things that I don't think that many people know about, but it's like when you stack all these things up, like yeah, it starts to make sense why like products like ours are so much more expensive.
I'm gonna eat this one last chip because it's so loud.
Yeah.
I want to eat the whole bag, but I'm not gonna. So, seed oil. Actually, before we get into seed oil, I would love to hear about a morning routine.
Oh, sure.
Do you have a morning routine that you can share with us?
It's not like your morning routine, I'll tell you that.
Great, let's go.
So I don't use an alarm clock. My wife sort of wakes me up. She's an early riser.
What time is that?
I'm more of a night person. So I work out at 7 a.m. 3 days a week, and so that'll be at like 6:15. And it takes my brain about like 30 minutes to come alive. So she'll like noodle me awake for about like 15 minutes. I'll get up, I'll go to the bathroom, I'll poke outside on my deck, get some fresh air, look at the sun. Hopefully the sun is bright. If it's cloudy, then is what it is. Drink my water. Lately I've been chewing some mastic gum in the morning while I still have an empty stomach.
What is that?
Mastic gum is like this resin from this tree in Greece. That's like you can chew it like a gum, but it has a lot of sort of antimicrobial properties. They put it in like drinks and sodas and liquors out there. And one of the things it can do is it helps with like H. pylori and like your gut bacteria. So it's like it's got this antimicrobial effect, and it's most potent when it's first thing in the morning.
You have that every day?
Most days, yeah.
Have you experienced any shift in anything since you've been using it?
Well, it typically enables me to be hungrier sooner for breakfast, which is a good sign, because when I had IBS that was like really bad, I wouldn't be hungry first thing in the morning. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I'd wake up and I would like have to go to the bathroom like 3 or 4 times over the course of like 2 or 3 hours before my stomach felt like alive enough to like digest food. Like you can feel like even you can feel like your stomach wants food, it's like ready to go, and then other times it's like it's not. The sluggish digestion was what I had experienced for like years first thing in the morning, and then I learned that like it's a sign of poor metabolism, like that's not good, IBS, like bacterial overgrowth in your upper intestines and all this stuff. So then I tried very hard to be able to eat breakfast first thing in the morning, and the mastic gum is one of those things that like helps prime my system.
Where would one find that?
So there is a company called Greco Gum which sells it. They are out of stock often, but they have a very nicely branded packaged version. You can also find it directly from Greece, like the Greek co-op. It's like made on this one island, literally this one island called Chios. And all the farmers are in like this co-op, and you can find like the package. It's like got the Greek writing and everything directly from them on it. I actually kind of prefer that version because the grains are a little bit bigger. But yeah, so I chew that in the morning before.
And real quick, just because I think our audience here loves to like really hear the details.
Sure.
So you wait. Your wife kind of not like nudges you awake. You wake up, take a few minutes to come to.
Yeah.
You drink your water.
Drink
Do
my
you have
water.
anything specific with your water?
It's my Mountain Valley spring water. So I get that delivered in big 5-gallon glass jugs because we have an apartment that's like too small for a big water filter. But if I were drinking filtered water, I would put I would put these like mineral drops in it. So there's a brand called CMD, SEAMD, that basically has like deep sea concentrated water from like I think it's outside of France with a lot of the salt removed, so it's like lower sodium, but you get a lot of trace minerals and stuff. And it's actually really weird if you have like reverse osmosis, like almost distilled water, basically very low solids in it. Like for me, it's like I don't even want to drink a lot of that. It like almost it's like drying to me. But then I put a few drops of the CMD stuff in it, and then I can like it's all good. So you can really like feel when the water is like nutrient like mineral depleted. So yeah, I would use that if I didn't have.
And you find this is your favorite water?
I like it a lot. I wouldn't say it's my favorite water. I mean, we have to get do a whole taste test. Get the flights of.
Are you a water guy? Big water guy?
Yeah. I don't really drink anything else other than water. I I used to drink kombucha. This is one of the things that I was like, one of my rabbit holes when I was in college. I would like brew kombucha in my off-campus apartment in my little, 200 square foot studio, like giant 5-gallon jugs of kombucha, and then once the flavor is over in the corner, and it was like a whole thing. I had a fermentation phase, but I don't really drink that anymore. I will have orange juice primarily when I'm eating my raw liver. So I'll cut up the raw liver and then like swallow it with orange juice.
Yuck.
The orange juice cuts out, like it hides the liver flavor completely.
Okay, so all right, we're gonna get there. So
yeah, morning routine.
So morning routine. So you the mastic gum is something that you do every day.
Yeah,
and you get sunlight every day in the eyes. Do you a specific amount of time?
Usually usually I'm running late because I work out, and it's like my trainer is I beam him in through like a Zoom basically, and so usually I'm running late, so it's probably like 2 minutes, 3 minutes of like outside time. Then I have the mastic gum, and then I basically just like put my hair up in a bun, and then like I call my trainer if I'm working out that day, and then we do stuff for about an hour, and then on the days that I'm not working out, I might just like do work instead, and then eat breakfast after working out. So this is usually around 8 a.m. And then I don't know when the morning routine is over, but it's breakfast is usually like eggs plus some meat. All this comes from our farmer's market, like 100% of this. The butter, also same thing. Usually toast from, it's real bread from a baker out in New Jersey that does freshly milled, whole grain, ancient grain, organic sourdough bread. It's like, I used to make bread. This was after the kombucha. I switched from the kombucha to bread in my apartment. And I would just like go the whole 9 yards, like perfect, like every single parameter of bread. You just dial it all the way up. And he's one of the only bakers that I know in the entire country that does it in the same way and like sells it. And he happens to have started in like my hometown, which is like it's like a random part of New Jersey. It's like a small town, and he happens to be doing that there.
Do you live in New Jersey now?
Yeah, I live about 35 minutes west of the city.
Cool.
Yeah. So my parents still live in the town, so every 2 weeks when we go to visit them, I'll like load up on bread and we'll freeze it. So yeah, it's like a half a piece of toast. So like if you slice the loaf of bread like this and then slice it in half, I'll eat a half piece of toast, so it's like not much, with butter. The eggs, the meat, some whatever herbs or vegetables might be present also that my wife happens to have on hand. And then sometimes for breakfast also it'll be the liver. The meat will be the liver and orange juice. So maybe if you want, this would be a good time to get into that.
How do you, so the raw liver.
Yeah.
When did that start?
Probably the raw liver. I got interested in organ meats, when I was doing the Carnivore Diet in, I want to say 2019. And I tried to do it. I forced myself. It was not pleasant, I will say.
How long did you do the carnivore for?
May 2019 to about like September when I went to Italy.
So 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Strict carnivore, only meat.
Well, for the first 2 weeks I ate some like sauerkraut, and then I was like, nope, we're doing this. And then it was only animal products. So during that time it was keto, only animal products. Wait, no, sorry. I did have honey. I did have some honey towards the end especially. But I didn't really drink milk. I would have, like, one of my desserts was like honey with raw cream, like heavy cream, eggs, some cheese, meat, organ meats, fish eggs, fish, and that's it. No plants, no mushrooms, no fungus, no.
How did you feel?
Not great.
Really?
Honestly, not great. So this goes back to kind of what we were talking about before with the paleo thing. Like my ancestry comes from like southern Italy, right? If anyone is far removed enough from like an ancestral state where we ate more than just meat, or we ate only meat, it's like my ancestors, right? People in that region started eating things other than meat earlier and started farming probably earlier than anyone else.
Funny enough, I have lineage in Sicily as well.
Yeah.
And my father's mother's family is Sicilian.
Nice.
And like her great-great-great-grandfather was the Count of Sicily.
Wow. Nice. That's badass.
Sicilian royalty.
That's cool. That's
so,
cool.
Okay, so in Sicily they were eating more than just meat earlier than anyone.
Yes, that's correct. And so I'm not saying this is I'm not saying this is like 100% of the time, like you figure out for yourself, but I strongly think that like I can't process a meat-only diet, whereas someone else might be able to. And so if you think about the most popular carnivore influencers, namely Sean Baker and this other guy, Primal Edge Health. I don't know if you've seen him. He lives in like Ecuador, I think. They're just very Northern European dudes, and like it sort of makes sense because so in when Julius Caesar sort of conquered France, he was like kind of fighting up against the tribes in Germany. He has this whole book where he like chronicles this expedition, and when he encounters the Germans, he distinctly remarks. I think there's two separate parts in this book about how like their native dietary practices. And at one time he says they survive off of meat and milk, and they hunt, and they bathe in the cold rivers, and they don't farm. And another time he says that they don't allow the importation of alcohol because, to use his words, he said their tribal leaders think that alcohol is like womanizing or feminizing or something. And so you have these people up there in Northern Europe, right across the Rhine in Germany, that at the time of Caesar writing this, which is like 50-ish BC, they were not farming, and they were eating meat and milk only, and just like hunting, and that was their like life. So someone with that ancestry is a bit closer to like an all meat or an all animal based diet than someone from southern Italy like me. So anyway, that's all the theory of it. It just so happened that like I didn't feel very good. I would have poop that floated. It was like very chalky. I don't have the ability to digest that much fat. And I tried all the things. So before people come at me and saying like, oh, but you didn't blah, blah, blah. Like I did the liver flushes. I did the ox bile as a supplement. I did the lipase as a supplement, a bunch of salt, whatever. I was constantly bloated, and it didn't work very well for me. And so I ended up like going to Italy, visiting some family, and it just so happens that I was, unable to maintain a strict carnivore diet in Italy, and that's kind of when that project
Where in Italy
in
Sicily are they from?
My mom's family is from, my mom's mom is from a town outside of Catania in the eastern side of Sicily, so up in the mountains. And my mom's dad is from a town in the southern part of Sicily near Syracuse. And he's from by the beach. And then my dad's family is from places in Apulia, which is like the heel of the boot. So
I'm very familiar with all those places. I
Nice.
got engaged in Taormina.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
It was amazing. We spent a lot of time in Catania,
Nice.
in Portoballo, south of Catania, and then we spent 2 weeks in Puglia last year.
Sweet.
Yeah, love it there.
Wow, yeah, the beaches in Apulia. I've never actually been to Apulia, but the beaches there, I've seen them, are just like,
Oh my God, it's without a question of a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying this in any way to offend anybody, but I believe Apulia is probably the best region in all of Italy.
huh.
Food-wise, location-wise, proximity to like amazing history and architecture, but also beaches and really cool place.
I will definitely have to check it out. I was in my honeymoon in Greece a few weeks ago, and on the way home we stopped in Rome, but didn't really get a chance to go outside of that. And I've never been to Apulia. I should. I've seen pictures though.
It's amazing.
Your
I mean,
testimony.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, carnivore diet, you started the liver stuff, and
Yeah.
you tossed the carnivore diet, but you held on to the raw liver.
Oh yeah. Organ meats and like meat in general is fantastic. Organ meats are nature's multivitamins. Like yes, all of that's true. Just like, is that the only thing that I should personally eat, and should most people eat?
But why raw?
Probably.
Why are you doing it raw?
I think it actually tastes better raw. So I had this theory that the most nutrient dense foods, fish eggs, like milk, butter, cream, like a lot of fish in general, organ meats, like they're all oftentimes very bright or densely colored, full of all sorts of nutrients. And they often, when you cook them, well, aside from the fact that people often don't cook them in culinary tradition, like you have Japanese like raw fish eating culture, caviar is never cooked. Raw milk is better than pasteurized milk, which is cooked milk. And so if you want to extend that kind of thing to the organ meats, like you would think that the organ meats are better raw too. And part of that is that cooking denatures many nutrients. So if you have something that's like a food that you're eating specifically for its nutrient density.
Not for flavor, not
Yeah.
for fuel, just for
nutrients.
Yeah.
Like you might not want to cook it. And so when you actually do that, like if you take a bright orange, like deep colored, like translucent salmon, when you cook it, what happens?
Turns pink, like a
Pale,
muted pink,
opaque. Yeah. It looks like less juicy in a way, like less vibrant, And the same thing happens when you take liver. Like it's this deep red, almost purple, like shiny, like piece of flesh, and then you cook it and it turns like gray and chalky. And it's like, to me, that's almost like nature telling you that like, hey, don't do that. It like goes from very desirable looking to very ugly. Same thing, almost all fish, you take a snapper and it's got this white and red little spots all over, and then you cook it and it's just like this white, plain mess. So yeah, I think there are multiple levels on which I think that it doesn't make sense to cook organs. And I mean, for the liver in particular, it literally doesn't taste as good. It doesn't taste good at all, but it tastes even worse when you cook it. And so for me, the easiest way to eat it is to like chop it up into little pieces. You stick it in the fridge for, you can freeze it and then pull out little portions as necessary. And then you kind of just like get a spoon and scoop them and then just like swallow it with orange juice. And if you do it right, you don't taste liver at all. And it works best with orange juice. I've tried it with like lemonade or like milk or other things.
And it's
so
just the acid just cuts through.
Yeah, it's just like the strong
sugar.
flavor of the orange juice. It just works the best. So yeah.
How much do you eat?
I don't know. It's probably like half a palm full. If I'm on
2 to 3 ounces.
Yeah. And then I don't know. This is usually like a once a week or maybe twice a week kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So you're at 8 a.m. You're eating your breakfast. Part of it is liver a couple times a week. I can't help but when I think of liver, you know who we think about,
Liver
right?
King.
You can't help but
Liver is king.
you just can't.
Yeah.
I think specifically raw liver. Mm-hmm. The first thing that pops up for me is that dude.
Yes.
And so I have had a hard time just sort of buying any of the liver stuff since then.
Yeah.
But, everybody fucks up and makes mistakes. It's all good. Got nothing against the guy. He's obviously a super successful person and understands how to market everything. I mean, the guy was able to make liver famous, which is kind of interesting. When you think of raw liver, you think of liver.
It's pretty impressive.
It's pretty impressive, without a doubt. What does, sleep is obviously, I would imagine, a part of your life that you appreciate. Mm-hmm. Do you have a wind down routine?
I do, but it doesn't always get implemented.
Okay.
So and this is something that I think it'd be interesting to hear your take on all this stuff too. So when I used to work at Facebook, I was a software engineer. I work like 10 hours a week max. Like it's just big tech jobs are chill. It's like what you do, especially with remote work. So I did not work very hard. I had a lot of spare time to like spend on all of the things that like are healthy and good. Working out, morning routines, wind down stuff, like my red light therapy, my tanning, like my fresh air, like all of that stuff. And now that I'm running a business, it's like I have very little time for all the stuff which is like ideal, and I know that it's like
Wait a
correct
second.
thing.
You breezed over something.
Yeah.
That we need to talk about.
Sure.
Tanning.
Oh, tanning.
Do you specifically you are intentional about the tanning?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you go to tan salons?
Not usually. If I lived throughout the winter in a place like England,
You would.
and I had no ability to like get somewhere sunny, like on vacation, then I probably would.
Yeah.
But fortunately, it's a very quick flight from New Jersey to go to Florida, like any time of the year. I have relatives down in like Palm Beach, and so it's like I don't have to ever really go that long without sunlight if I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So get back to it. Sorry. I cut you
So
off.
yeah, all of this stuff is like now I'm like, yeah, I have emails to answer that are like I have 500 emails to answer. I have like ads to like go design. I have like tax stuff to do. I have ordering stuff to do. I have recipe development. I have emails to write. All this stuff. So it's like, yeah, there is a wind down routine that I enjoy doing, and I do it when I can. But the reality is I can't always actually implement it. And that would be, so I always do red light glasses no matter what. Sun goes down, red light glasses. I have this thing on my computer called Flux, which also like really turns it into the orange spectrum. Mm-hmm. So if I'm on my computer late at night.
So you mean you wear the blue light blocking glasses, but the red
Sure.
lenses?
Yes, the
Gotcha.
really like the strong blue light blocking glasses.
Gotcha.
Yeah, And so that always
You
goes,
also look like the kind of guy that would totally, like, nobody would question. Like, if you walked in the room at night with those red glasses, nobody would be like, oh, that's weird.
I do that. Like, if I go out, I wear my blue light blocking glasses.
You look like the dude that is going to wear that at all times.
I literally...
I would never, ever question. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's weird, like, on that guy.
It's really funny. Yeah, no, I actually, for the first few weeks after I got them, I was like, if I would go out at night, I would like leave them home because it like looks weird. And then after you wear them for a while, it's like blue light at night is just so painful. It's just so uncomfortable. You get used to the soothing red glow of things. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I can't. I have to wear these. And so I was living in Fort Lauderdale at the time, and I just like went out with my friends, like the bar that we would go to, and then I'm like in my red light glasses, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. People think this is like sunglasses.
When I started wearing the red light glasses, and I've had to convert to the clear blue light blockers because my wife couldn't handle it. She literally couldn't handle it.
That's funny.
She would say, I can't look at you.
Interesting.
She'd be like, this is too much.
Interesting.
It's the same thing with the mouth tape.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, I got, when the mouth tape thing happened, like whatever it was, a year ago, and there was a couple of these businesses kind of popping up, I got sent a bunch of mouth tape.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine launched a mouth tape that I was actually really interested in because I believe what he says, and I think he's a smart guy. And I was like, okay, well, if he does it, and then a couple of other friends were actually doing it on a regular basis. So I pulled it out. We were sitting watching something on Netflix. This is probably about 3 months ago or so. 2-3 months ago, and I pulled out a thing, and she was like, "Oh, what is that?" And I was like, "Oh, this is
no boy,
this is mouth tape." And she was like, "What?" And mind you, my wife, God bless her, she's amazing. I love her to death. She's polar opposite of me in regards to like habits, things.
Oh boy.
None of them. She just lives her life, right?
Yeah.
She said, "I won't sleep in bed with you if you do that." She said, you have a cold mattress under your feet, under your side of the bed.
Nice.
You have white noise next to your head. You wear an eye mask. We have blackout shades.
No, it's mouth tape.
Just no. You cover your body with CBD, topical cream every night. Like, this is too far.
Well, at least you don't have like an EMF cage around your bed.
That's true. I don't sleep in a hyperbaric chamber anymore. No, I'm joking.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay, so red light blockers, yeah.
Yeah, that always happens no matter where I am. It's like the same New Year's trip where like the idea for Masa was created with like my friends that I was in Florida. There's like photos of me at like 6 a.m. at like some bar with like my red light lenses on, and it's like I think people literally are like, oh, he's like wearing sunglasses at night. Yeah. But it works. I do it religiously. So that always happens, and then ideally I would just stop working. I don't know, probably 45 minutes before I go to bed. Turn the Wi-Fi off. Always do that, and then like read a book, and then go to sleep. My wife is likely already asleep by this point because she goes to bed earlier than I do.
What time is this?
If I'm in bed by 10:30, that's great. If my target time is like a little bit before 10, but sometimes it's like by 11. It's very rare that I stay past 11. I really don't like doing it, but sometimes. Like for example, I was invited to a conference this last weekend. And 3 days before I was supposed to go, they asked me to give a speech. And I was like, how long is it? And they're like, 45 minutes. I'm like, asked me to write a 45-minute speech with 3 days notice. And it's not like I have a speech that I can just whip it out. It's not like I do this often.
What kind of conference?
It was sort of like health, Bitcoin related, like kind of the melding between those two groups. So pretty interesting to see that connection nowadays. I don't know if you've seen this, but like Bitcoin people love steak and they hate seed oils. It's like a big thing. But yeah, so I gave a talk. But anyway, point is, I was writing this like 3 days before I had to go, and I just have to get it done. And so I stayed up till like 12:30 one of the nights, and then just like woke up late. And, that's usually like an extenuating circumstance, but gotta do what you gotta do. Oh, and I do the mouth tape at night when I finally go to bed. Yeah. It's like decently cold. Air conditioner set to 71. It's blacked out curtains, and I'll do the mouth tape. Oftentimes I'll wake up with it like on the pillow or something. I'll like rip it off. I don't know. Usually it's probably around 5 a.m.
Are you a snorer?
I have been.
Okay.
And I am when like I'm stressed or something's wrong, but I don't need to be. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. And the mouth tape definitely does help.
Mouth tape helps. Mouth tape helps a lot. Another way to notice this, because like you can't hear yourself snoring, but if you wake up and your mouth is like dry and has a bad taste in it, you mouth breathe that night.
Yeah, see, I feel super lucky and blessed that for whatever reason, I've never been a snorer. My father, however, like he's dead and I still hear him snoring.
That's wild.
You know, he was the loudest snorer of all time.
Wild.
I mean, totally just unbearable.
Yeah.
Unbearable. I have no idea how my mother. I think that's grounds to leave somebody.
Yeah.
Just that bad.
We'll get her the earplugs, mouth tape, earplugs.
Yeah.
Load it all.
Or just like total full armor, knight in shining armor.
Yeah, this is one of those things that like there's so many examples of this that people think are a fact of reality. Snoring, or like me being congested, or gas and bloating, or I have a bad taste in my mouth when I wake up. People just think these are part of reality when they're all completely fixable. But we just don't think in that way as a culture. And so people are like, if they try to think about how to fix it all, they're like, oh, what pill can I take to fix this?
Got to go to the doctor.
Or they don't even think about it. And they're just like, yep, I snore. And it's like, dude, no, you don't have to, right? But like no one's interested in really doing the work to fix it.
Before we go, I think it's really important that you tell us the story of Masa and why it was so important for you to make this chip.
I don't know, after 10 years of being obsessed with health and doing all that stuff I was talking about, making my kombucha, my sourdough bread, reading my books, experimenting on myself, I started to post about this type of thing on TikTok. And one of the trends that was sort of just happening at the time was like seed oils. And so by virtue of not eating processed like synthetic foods, I ended up avoiding seed oils like 95% of the time. However, and so this is probably like 2.5, maybe 3 years ago at this point. It was about 3 years ago, actually. So by virtue of just not eating processed foods, I didn't really encounter many seed oils. However, when I started hearing about it, I was like looking more into it, and I was like, wow. So seed oils are a big deal because they are like the archetypal processed food. Seed oils are really the first processed food, if you think about it. Before seed oils existed, this whole idea of packaged snack foods or pre-made meals or whatever, none of that existed. But the advent of cheap oils that you could just use to throw in foods and add your preservatives and keep it stable, shelf stable for however long. And also the branding of the first seed oil, which is Crisco, created a sort of world of packaged food processed brands that you can get today. In the early 1900s, you go to a little country store in your town, and there might be flour, and there might be nuts, and there might be fruit, and there might be sugar, and there might be all this stuff. But none of it came in branded packaging. You would bring your own little containers, and they would be in these big containers, and it's just sugar. And so you'd fill up your sugar, and you'd just fill up your flour, and then you'd leave. So the whole world today is very different, right? You don't just buy sugar, you buy sugar in the raw. You don't just buy flour, you buy King Arthur flour. You don't just buy, even if they had chips at the time, you don't just buy tortilla chips, you buy Tostitos, or you buy Masa Chips, if you know what you're doing. Of course. So that whole concept of branded food wasn't a thing. And Crisco, as the first seed oil, not only made this branded food a thing, because in a way it was the first invented food, right? You couldn't go get Crisco from someone else because Crisco comes from one factory with a patent by Procter & Gamble. All the other foods are like this because they come from everywhere. They're just a natural thing. And so, you just get it. But Crisco only comes from one company. And so that company branded it in such a way as to make it identifiable. And then that really set off everyone else following suit with the whole branded food thing. And that explains how grocery stores are the way they are today.
Kleenex and Clorox.
Everything. All of it. So before then it was like bleach, fill up your jug. Maybe they didn't have bleach. I don't know. But vinegar, baking soda. It wasn't Arm & Hammer, whatever. So that branded thing was started by them, but also Crisco itself was the first manufactured food. Every food up until that point was just food. You could go make the food yourself from a campfire if you really wanted to, and a cast iron pot outside in the woods, no electricity, no nothing. But Crisco was the first invented food, And all of processed food as an entire category that we talk about is invented manufactured food. It's food that like you can't just make outside in your backyard with a campfire if you wanted to. It's food with ingredients that you can't find in your grandma's cupboard, right? Soy lecithin is like a common ingredient and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, imagine being like a kid going to your like great grandma or grandma's house being, oh grandma, I'm going to help you make cookies. And she's like, oh yeah, Johnny, go get the soy lecithin from the cupboard. Like, no, it's like fake ingredients. So anyway, seed oils were like the start of all this. They're in all of the fake foods that everyone eats that make everyone unhealthy. They are 20% of all of our calories. And like they're just inherently toxic to human biology. It's not even like a dose problem. Yeah, you can eat a small amount of them. They're not going to affect you that much, just like anything. But it's not as if we're eating too many seed oils. The fact that we're eating them at all is the problem. And so I really like that resonated with me because of like all the physiology and how they were implicated in so many things, but also because they're a very good talking point to just describe natural food in general. Like if you can say natural food, people like that term is kind of watered down. You say processed food, everyone's like, that's not very punchy. But from like a propaganda standpoint, if you will, seed oils is like a great term. And it's reflective, and it sort of introduces people to the general idea that like, hey, we want actual food ingredients. We don't want this like fake factory stuff. And so I just think seed oils are, I was really obsessed with seed oils because of that. And then, the other issue is like they're freaking everywhere. And the problem with so many of the junk foods that we know today, like Doritos and Lay's, potato chips or whatever, the problem with the junk foods is not that that a potato chip is bad. It's just that they're all made with terrible ingredients. Just like the oatmeal. Is oatmeal bad? Or is like Quaker Oats quick overnight oats or whatever, is that bad? And so the seed oils are one of the primary reasons why all the food that we eat is bad, and it doesn't have to be. So the cool thing about seed oils is that if you take them out and replace them with a real fat, the food is now more delicious, right? Masa Chips taste better than Tostito. It's not like a gluten-free bread, which like is no one really loves gluten-free bread. It's not like that. Like you take the seed oils out and you put tallow in, and all of a sudden it's a more delicious chip. So all these ideas kind of like came together, and I think they're all very powerful. And that's why I was sort of like focused on seed oils, because I'm like, we get people talking about this. We get people get rid of seed oils. We end up by proxy fixing all the other problems with food in general. So yeah, that's my seed oil spiel.
And then how did that parlay into Masa?
Yeah, okay. So Masa happened about 6 months. Well, so the idea happened about 6 months after I had started talking about this stuff on TikTok. My friend, this is like right after New Year's, he's like hungover. I don't drink that much, so I wasn't hungover, but he was. And so he was eating like, I don't know, some chips from some taco Uber Eats or something or other. We were like down in South Florida, so there's a lot of like taco stuff there. And he's just like eating his seed oil corn, and I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you poisoning yourself? Like, that's disgusting. It's like literal like not food that you're just ingesting. And he's like, oh, leave me alone. Like, I'm hungover. I don't have time for all your like whatever healthy stuff. I don't want to eat your weird like kale and cardboard whatever. And I'm like, dude, I don't eat kale and cardboard whatever. All my food is delicious. Even I would eat tortilla chips. And he was like, this is surprising to him because like most people, he thinks that healthy foods have to taste bad. And so I'm saying like, no, healthy foods don't have to taste bad. You just eat like garbage, like food with the cheapest quality possible ingredients. You could make your corn chips that are, with good ingredients that also like taste good. And he was like intrigued by this. And so I started describing like how I would make that type of corn chip. But then I was like, so it was the organic corn, it was the tallow, it was all these things. But then I was like, yeah, this doesn't exist anywhere, so good luck. And he's like, well, it doesn't exist. Like, okay, why don't you go make it? And I'm like, maybe I should. And so then that was the sort of like moment where, something had happened. And so over the next few months, like we kind of, this is my co-founder, by the way. He ended up becoming my co-founder. So over the next few months, we went and sort of, looked more into this. None of us have any experience in the food industry formally. Looked into how we would manufacture it, all the regulations involved, FDA, nutrition labels, all this stuff. We had no idea about anything. Ultimately realized that I would not be able to find a co-packer to make it for us. It's just too different from the way everything is done. They don't want to deal with all that change. And so I was like, if we're going to have to do this, like I'm literally going to have to make it myself. And so I bought a turkey fryer. I bought a box of grass-fed tallow. I bought some organic corn tortillas, chopped them up, and then like fried them in my parents' backyard on like Easter of last year. And they came out amazing. My whole family loved them. And they're not the crazy health people like I am. And they even love them. And so when that happened, I was like, okay, well, that's big. This is like the culmination of my entire philosophical point here about how good food when made with real ingredients is both healthy and tastes good. It's like right there in the flesh right here. And so I knew this is like the holy grail of snack foods, right? Because like everyone's used to the healthy chips like tasting bad or weird, like cardboard, kale, chia seeds, whatever. And so that was the product, and we just like had to find a way to sort of brand it and package it and sell it and market it in a way that would like make it sort of appealing to people, and kind of express our fundamental like beliefs about food in a way that's like visual, if that makes sense. So you've obviously spent some time in Italy, so you've seen the resorts, like the beaches with the beach towels and the stripes and the umbrellas and it's like the linen clothes and the wooden sailing boats, and it's all very elevated. That's kind of like what we're going for with the package. It's like trying to show you like that good quality ingredients make like food that is luxurious in the sense that it is delicious and enjoyable, but also in the sense that you're supporting your body and supporting your health, like in health is wealth, right? So we're trying to evoke that idea in the way that it's all packaged and branded. But yeah, so then we ended up like making them ourselves, which we still do by hand, last July, and we sold our first bag. Then we did like, I don't know, $10,000 of chips in like a week or something. And then we were like, okay, this is pretty serious. Like, no more side project, time to like go all in. And then I quit my job at Facebook, and then I've been running this ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're only about a year old.
13 months. Yeah, it's a baby.
Congrats.
Still nursing.
And you just got married.
I did, like a month ago.
Lots of things happening in 2023 for you, man.
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy year so far.
This has been an awesome journey, dude. I love hearing from you all the things that you've done as just a passionate food person who really cares about optimizing your health based on what you ingest. And
Right.
I think that far too many people think about our health as going to the doctor.
Yeah.
And having some sort of artificially manufactured pill to change the course of our lives, when really, if everybody on the planet started eating more like you and I and walking 10,000 steps a day, everything would change.
And yeah, that's really the idea here. And so I think it's worth mentioning that like people like you and me are very sort of obsessive about all this stuff. I mean, I spent 10 years figuring all this stuff out. I'm sure you've spent an equivalent amount of time always experimenting, trying new things. You've learned so much. But like, this is a very small minority of people, right? The vast majority of normal people are either uninterested or not willing to be interested or don't have the time to be interested or even capacity to learn and like figure out all this stuff for themselves. And so I learned this pretty quickly after I started making TikToks. I would tell people, eat like this or do this or whatever. And people are like, I don't have the time for that. Where do you even get like your food? The grocery store doesn't have this. Like, I can't do what you do. And it's like, it's too inconvenient for them to do it. And obviously that's like an excuse, right? But in a sense, it's kind of true. In the 1950s, when everyone was healthy, it's not as if people just knew more about biochemistry and like worked out harder and like drove to the farmer's market to get better food. They just went to the convenience store down the street, and it just so happened that not everything was poisonous. And so my goal in order to like sort of fix this, like for people that aren't like us, is like, let me just make you the foods that you already like to eat. And I'm just going to give it to you in a way that I'm just going to give it to you with real ingredients. And you don't even have to know anything about anything.
Like you and I are essentially solving that I don't know how to do this problem.
Exactly. And that's why I think the actual like making of the food is super valuable. Like, yes, it's great to see people like educating people and talking about all the informational stuff. But until the actual solutions, the foods, the red light glasses, the clean water, whatever it is, are easily and conveniently available to people, like on a society-wide level, like nothing's going to change.
You know, it's so interesting, and I'll just share one thing here because I think it's important to share before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
On the seed oil topic. So in our product, Meal One, we use pumpkin seeds, roasted pumpkin seeds.
Yeah.
And we were buying roasted pumpkin seeds in sunflower oil.
Yeah.
We no longer use sunflower oil. We have found a person that is now dry roasting for us.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Only for us.
That's awesome.
Because we couldn't find
Yeah.
a pumpkin seed roasted in olive oil, avocado,
sense.
or coconut oil
Yeah.
that was anywhere near close to affordable for our product.
Sure.
I guess the point that I'm trying to make by saying that is I'm so grateful that we're using dry roasted seeds now, even though they're not going to be as crunchy as oil roasted seeds. It is so hard to find an ingredient like pumpkin seeds
Yeah.
that is not using seed oil.
It's really tough.
It's really, really hard. And the one complaint, because the demographic that we market to is people like you and me for the most part,
Right.
that are actually looking at these things. The number one complaint that we get now at Kreatures is what's with the seed oil and the pumpkin seeds.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm so happy that we've found a solution. It literally though took almost 2 years to figure out a solution. Outside of us just literally dry roasting or roasting the seeds ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's really, really kind of wild that the food supply chain makes it very hard.
Yeah, and whether it's production, restaurants, packaged foods, if you're the business, if you're the customer, it's not like people want to eat seed oils. And this is the crazy thing. Like, people might want to eat gluten-free bread, or they might want to eat keto, or they might want to not eat keto, or they might want to not eat gluten-free bread. But no one wants to eat seed oils. They're only doing it because their alternative is maybe too inconvenient. And so they have to, right? Obviously, this is an excuse. Of course, all problems can be solved. But when the solution is really, really difficult, then it's just you might not prioritize.
Well, I also think though, just to what I think what makes it also very difficult is these bigger companies are a lot less expensive than the smaller companies.
And that's part of it too. Not only finding it, even if you can find it, it's, like you said, the olive oil pumpkin seeds are going to cost 10 times more, and your customers want to pay that. But I think this bodes very well for the future, because it means as we can do more and all of us can get bigger, and we are able to change the both perceptions of customers as well as the financial dynamics of the industry itself, then this problem is fixable over time. It's not like it's going to be difficult forever. When all this stuff is easily available, problem solved, right? If Masa Chips are in every grocery store and you have to choose between Masa Chips and Tostitos, and assume by then Masa Chips are a bit more cost effective for us to produce than they are today, then if it's there, most people are going to choose the better option, not only because it tastes better, but because they know that it's better for them. And so that's really where we have to be shooting for. And once that happens, all of the sort of base level health problems that we know and see in society, a lot of that will go away simply because people are just eating different. They might not even notice. They might be like, oh, I really like in 5 years, if someone buys Masa Chips and they're like, what's a seed oil? But I don't know, I love the way they taste. Then we're winning when that happens. Because I don't need people to know about polyunsaturated fats and lipid peroxidation and all this crap. You don't need to know about that if we can just replace the food that you're already eating with foods that are better, whether it's oatmeal or chips or whatever, then we win.
The truth is, and I've said this for a long time, if you take 10 people, put them in a room, and look at all of them from all walks of life, shapes, and sizes, and say to them, would you rather be healthy, fit, and feel great, or unhealthy, unfit, and feel like shit? What would you rather do? 10 out of 10, there might be the one weirdo who's like, nah, man, I want to be a fat piece of shit. But there might be the one person who's like, nah, whatever, I don't care. 9 out of 10, most likely 10 out of 10 is going to say, of course, I'd rather be healthy, feel great, and be fit.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 people.
Of course.
100% of the world would rather be fit, healthy, and feel great. And so if that's the case, if that's truth, which I believe most likely is the case, we've got a long road ahead.
Yeah.
But at least they want it.
Yeah, they want it. It just they might not be willing or able to put in the time and effort and energy and whatever required to get there.
It's a discipline thing.
And so to the extent, and discipline will always need to be there, but the extent to which we can make it easier is the extent to which we can help all these people, right? Like, yes, you're going to have to go to the gym. I can't go to the gym for you. But should you be like making your own homemade tortilla chips? Like, probably not. Like, we can solve that problem. Should you be like driving 45 minutes to go to a farm to like find raw milk? Probably not. We can solve that problem. Right?
No, but you can take the stairs instead of the escalator.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dude, this was an awesome convo, man. You're such an interesting guy. I'm so happy that we got to connect. Where can people find Masa Chips?
MasaChips.com.
Okay.
Masa_chips, and that's MASA chips. Masa_chips on Instagram.
And then follow your journey?
Really tan man everywhere.
Really tan man.
Yeah.
This was amazing, dude. I am a fan of you. You personally, I'm a fan of the chips. My whole family is a fan of the chips. Anybody who I introduce the chips to are a big fan. So you've done something really awesome and really special, and you're making an impact. You've made an impact, and you're making an impact. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Great to be on. I'm glad to have met you.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And also, this lime flavor is stellar. It's stellar. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. It would mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend, a family, or even a foe. The biggest compliment we can get is by you sharing this podcast. If you are feeling up for it and got a couple of minutes to spare, maybe 2 to 3 minutes max, give us a nice review and a 5-star rating. That would mean the world as well. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. Without you, I am not me. So keep coming back. We are going to be doing this every week, as you know, forever, hopefully. Until the next one, y'all. Peace.